What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with NIO stock, what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to talk about what's going on with the overall market as we have some very, very interesting developments from Jerome Powell. I'm going to talk about SPY, Tesla, the QQQ, and many tickers out there, and also break down what's going on with the news affecting NIO alongside the data coming out for tomorrow. But before I break anything down about all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just 2 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO is up 1.98% for the day, holding up quite nicely. But the real question is, will NIO continue to pump, or is NIO going to see some downside because of Powell? I'm going to answer this question in just a couple of minutes, but first let's talk about what happened with Powell very briefly. Powell basically was being a lot more hawkish. He said that there's going to be a lot more restrictive policy to come. He said the economy is way too hot and the Fed may have to continue to raise rates. He said if the economy remains too too strong moving forward, the Fed may give us 2 more rate hikes specifically, and there's a lot of work that still has to be done. He mentioned that inflation is not coming down as swiftly as the Fed wants it to be, and he said that core CPI and core PCE are way too sticky, and there's still more work that has to be done. Powell also talked about how the service sector is still very, very hot in terms of inflation. There's still a lot of work that has to be done there. And he may not see us coming back to 2% in 2023 and 2024. He said it's going to take a long time to get inflation down to those levels, so there's lots of work to be done. When Powell said these things, the market slowed down quite a bit, and this caused some downside. So this is why the market ended up performing the way it did, and it's very important that we consider things like that. However, when it comes to earnings, I just want to note that for Wednesday, which is today, we have BlackBerry reporting earnings. We also have Micron coming out very soon. And then for tomorrow, we have one of the biggest earnings days of the week. We have Rite Aid reporting earnings, then Nike, which is going to be one of the big ones for Thursday. Besides that, there's not much else coming out for the week for earnings. But for data, we do have some important stuff. So just as a reminder, Jerome Powell spoke today at 9:30 a.m. And when he spoke, the market got shook a lot. Remember what he was saying about more rate hikes, the market came down. Let me just show you how SPY moved because of Powell. If you look at like the 5-minute chart, for example, you can see there was quite a bit of volatility like right here. You can see how it moved because of Powell. We came down, we gapped down to like 434, came all the way up to 437, got right back down to those levels and just traded sideways throughout the day. This affected NIO at least to some degree, especially when you look at it on the QQQ side. But besides that, I want to remind you guys that Powell is going to be speaking again today. Excuse me, sorry guys. Today at 11:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is 2:30 a.m. Eastern time, right? Jerome Powell is going to be speaking. What he says is going to affect the markets big time, so make sure you watch this very carefully. And when Powell speaks, the entire market tends to move. So be ready for that. That may affect how the market opens. And if he gives us more developments and acts more hawkish again, this could slow things down. So please be ready for that. On top of this, remember that for Thursday, which is tomorrow, we have the GDP numbers coming out, the GDP growth rate and the GDP price index. That's going to be very important for the Fed and their data and their policy. Then we have initial jobless claims coming out. That's going to be very important as well. All 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, all this data is coming out. Then we have some like PC expectations and things like that, followed by Bostic giving a speech. So another one of the Fed speakers who tends to be a little bit more on the hawkish side at about 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you watch all of this data. Lots of data is going to be dropping tomorrow. Plus, we have Powell speaking at 2:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Powell's going to be speaking again, unfortunately, just when we thought this guy would be gone, he's back. So make sure you're ready for more volatility because of this. When he speaks, the market tends to drop. That's what happened today. But then when he was done, the market came right back up. For NIO, things are looking very optimistic according to many analysts, and they are boosting investors' enthusiasm. NIO stock is predicted to do a lot better for the second half of the year, and there's a very good chance that investors are very optimistic about it. This is why NIO is doing so well so far. NIO is expected to do well for the June deliveries. I do believe it's going to get there very soon. It's going to be reported in just a couple of days, so make sure you're ready for that. NIO also announced that on June 25th, NIO opened its 1500th NIO Power Swap station and has more than 2,300. It's going to have 2,300 in total in 2023. Now, on top of that, it's going to be targeting to build 1,000 more in China this year. They're going to continue to build more and more as infrastructure grows. This is great for the company because more and more infrastructure is going to help them. And moving forward, I'm still very excited for what the company has and is going to be able to accomplish. NIO has an equal weight rating from Barclays, but if they do very well in deliveries, they're going to be getting more overweight ratings, which means that they're going to be expected to outperform the market. NIO tends to be green about, I believe it's 51% of the time on Thursdays. So not that often, most of the time typically. And we tend to do better during the third, also during the fourth hours of the trading day. Last but not least, the short interest on NIO is dropping as we're seeing less shorts piling in, and we saw some short covering, which is helping NIO pump. Why are shorts covering so much? Could they know something about NIO's numbers? It's a possibility. If you look at the volume, it's very low volume. NIO is holding up on low volume, so it lacks volume, but it is seeing some short covering, which is helping it pump. NIO closed a big deal. That's another reason why this is happening. So if you look at NIO, they closed a big deal, and they have big expectations for the future. So that's going to be good for the share price. I'm going to break that down in just a few minutes. Let's talk about SPY. If SPY turns bullish tomorrow, you're going to be watching this resistance at this 436.64 area. If it breaks down, it could get closer to 438, potentially 440. 440 is going to be major resistance. We also have a gap at 439. If it breaks above 438, it's going to most likely fill the gap at 439. If it breaks down, watch support at 435. The entire 435 zone, then 434 to 434.5. If it breaks below those, watch 433, and below that, it's likely going to sink closer to 430. So watch all of those support and resistance levels. I think tomorrow we may slow down because of Powell speaking in the morning, but then the GDP numbers and initial jobless claims could affect us too. So watch that all very carefully. I can't really predict what the numbers are going to be, so I'm just going to be cautious for now. Watch support and resistance and just get ready. Tesla's holding up very nicely, so I'm going to be watching this very carefully, even from a technical standpoint. If it breaks down, you're going to be watching support at 252. If that breaks down, watch 250 as the next major support. There's some support at 255.75 at the 50 EMA, but once again, I'm just going to watch that carefully. Tesla got very tight, so I'm anticipating a big move. If it breaks to the upside, watch the next major resistance at 260. If it breaks 260, this thing has a lot of potential to push up quite nicely to much higher levels. So we're going to be watching this very carefully, which way it goes. But here's what I think is going to happen. I don't know what Powell is going to cause in the GDP numbers, whether they cause upside or downside. It doesn't matter to me for Tesla because I believe as we approach Friday, Tesla's going to pump very nicely into the 260s pretty quickly. And I think it has potential to make its way up to 270 plus. I think this may help NIO and many other EVs pump as well. So it's going to be worth noting that we watch this on a technical basis. For the QQQ, if this thing breaks down, you're going to be watching 364 as support, 363, then potentially 360 will come below that if it breaks below like 361. If it breaks to the upside, you're going to be watching resistance at 364.69 around that area. And then if it breaks that, watch this thing fly to 366. If it breaks down, watch 368 and 370. What do I think is going to happen? We may slow down because of Powell, then get a really nice bounce later on. But like I said, we have to watch the numbers too just to be safe. Last but not least, let's talk about NIO. How is NIO looking? From a technical standpoint, NIO is looking quite nice. On the 1 hour time frame, NIO does have this bearish crossover on the PPO, but it is continuing to push up, forming this like divergence right here. So I'd be careful because of that. But on the 4 hour time frame, it's still looking more bullish. So we have kind of like mixed signals. The shorter time frames are suggesting we may cool off just a little bit because of Powell tomorrow, possibly. We could see NIO make its way back down to like 9.25 or something, maybe get like a back test of that, maybe cool off in the morning. Then it could bounce and just try to continue pushing depending on the GDP numbers. But here's what I'm thinking. Even if we cool off on Thursday for NIO, even if that happens, right? I think there's a good chance it's going to try to bounce and try to hold up for Friday in anticipation of deliveries because guidance is very strong. NIO is telling us they're going to give us at least 10,000 deliveries, and investors are very enthusiastic because of that. If it breaks down, watch support at 9.25. If that breaks down, watch 9.2. 8.94 to like 9, that's the next major support. 8.68, then 8.5. If it breaks to the upside, we have resistance at 9.7, then $10 after that. I'm leaning in the direction that NIO may cool off in the morning because of Powell and maybe because of some numbers. It really depends on the data, but I am leaning a little bit more in that direction. Then I think NIO might rebound and start pushing more towards the later part of the day and possibly by Friday even more with Tesla in anticipation of deliveries. That's the direction I'm leaning in. So watch support and resistance. And until then, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Also, don't forget that NIO has a very important level I was looking at not too long ago. I mean, if this thing does like start popping after deliveries, I could see this thing make its way closer to $12 if we start running very hard, if they give us very strong deliveries. So there's a lot of potential and a lot of optimism for the stock to continue going as it has a lot of strength right now. But anyways, like I said before, thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone. NIO to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.